The stars looked peaceful from the crystal bridge of the Zephyrian ship. Admiral Leary stood quietly, watching the soft blue light dance across the walls. His tall, thin body moved slowly as he walked to the viewing window. Through his clear skin, gentle lights pulsed in rhythm with his calm heartbeat. For 3,000 years, his people had lived this way. Their cities floated through space like giant jewels powered by harmony and cooperation. The Zephyrians had never needed to fight on their home world. Working together meant staying alive. Violence was something they had left behind long ago, but now everything was changing. Admiral, his aide whispered behind him, another message from the outer colonies. Lyrics closed his eyes. He already knew what the message would say. The same thing every message had said for the past 6 months: death, destruction, terror from the stars. The Krathic had come from the center of the galaxy like a storm made of hunger and hate. They were not like the Zephyrians at all, where his people were tall and graceful. The Kraith were thick and armored. They had many arms that ended in sharp claws. Their ships were alive, grown instead of built, and they ate planets the way a person might eat fruit. What do they want from us? Lai had asked during the first diplomatic meeting. He had tried to speak with their leader through the communication screen. The Krathic commander had 4 arms and eyes like blackstones. Want. The creature had made a sound that might have been laughter. We want nothing from you. We take everything from you. Your worlds will feed our ships. Your people will become food for our young. This is the way. That had been 3 months ago. Since then, the Zephyrians had tried everything they could think of. They offered technology, resources, even empty planets far from their colonies. The Crack ignored every offer. They just kept coming, system by system, world by world. Show me the message, Larrick said softly. The aide touched a crystal panel, and words appeared in the air made of blue light. The message was from Commander Zara on the mining world of KTH-7. Her voice shook as she spoke. Admiral, they are here. Our defense ships try to stop them, but their weapons pass right through our shields. The bioships are landing now. We can see them from the command center. They are so big, Admiral, so hungry. The ground shakes when they walk. We have maybe 1 hour before they reach the main colony. If anyone receives this message, please remember us. Please remember that we try to be good people. Please tell our families that the message ended. In static, Lex felt something cold move through his chest. Fear was not common among his people, but he was learning to recognize it. Keith 7 had been home to 4 million Zephyrians. Now it was probably home to none. Admiral, his aide said quietly, the council is waiting. The council chamber was different from the rest of the ship, where other rooms were filled with soft curves and gentle colors. This place was stark and serious. 12 of the wisest Zephyrians sat in a circle, their faces grave with worry. We have lost 17 worlds, said Counselor Tyne, the oldest among them. His voice was thin with age and sorrow. The Krathic advance faster than we can evacuate our people. Our weapons cannot penetrate their bio-armor. Our shields cannot stop their acid weapons. What about the other species? Asked Counselor Vess. Surely someone in the galaxy can help us. The Altarians tried, replied Tyne. The Crack consumed their entire warfleet in 2 days. The Vegan Republic has closed their borders and will not answer our calls. The Trade Federation offers Prayers and good wishes, but no ships. Lyrics listened to the discussion with growing despair. Every option led to the same conclusion, the Zapirian collective, which had brought peace and prosperity to dozens of worlds, was going to die. There is one possibility, said Counselor Nash, younger member who rarely spoke in meetings. The beacon. The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew about the beacon. It was ancient technology from the early days of space travel before the galactic community had formed proper communication networks. The device could send a message farther and faster than any normal transmitter, reaching across the entire galaxy in a matter of days. The beacon has not been used for over 1,000 years, Tyne said slowly. We do not even know if it still works, but it could reach species we have never met. Nash continued, civilizations so far away that the Krayik have never found them. Perhaps there are people out there who still know how to fight. And what would we offer them? Asked Bess. Our technology is useless against the crack. Our knowledge is peaceful. What could we give to warriors that they would want? Whatever they ask for, Elle said quietly. All eyes turned to him. If there are people out there who can save us, we give them whatever they want. Technology, resources, worlds, if necessary. Nothing matters if we are all dead. The vote was unanimous. Within hours, teams of technicians were working to activate the ancient beacon. The device was massive, taking up an entire section of the ship. Crystal matrices hummed with power as the engineers brought systems online that had been dormant for centuries. The signal is ready, Admiral, reported Chief Technician Vale. We can broadcast on all known frequencies simultaneously. The message will reach every inhabited system within 50,000 light-years. Leary stood before the recording device. What did you say to unknown people across the galaxy? How did you ask strangers to die for you, to any civilization receiving this transmission? He began, his voice steady despite his fear. This is Admiral Lyrics of the Zirian Collective. We are under attack by a hostile force known as the Crack Horde. They have destroyed 17 of our worlds and show no interest in negotiation or peace. Our weapons cannot stop them. Our allies cannot help us. We estimate that our entire civilization will be extinct within 6 months. He paused, thinking of all the peaceful worlds that would burn, all the gentle people who would die. We are sending the technical specifications of our energy technology, our medical knowledge, and our star charts. We offer all of this freely to any species willing to provide military assistance. We know this request may seem strange. We know that most civilizations value peace as we do. But if there are any people out there who still remember how to fight, how to kill, how to be monsters when they need to be, please help us. We are running out of time. The message was sent, carrying its desperate plea across the vast emptiness of space. Most who received it would be too far away to help. Others would be too weak or too afraid. The Zapirians could only hope that somewhere in the galaxy someone would answer. 3 days later, the reply came from a small system in the outer spiral arm. The signal was crude, the translation rough, but the meaning was clear. Zephyrian vessel, this is Earth Defense Force. We received your distress call. We are coming. Send coordinates for our warships. Estimated arrival in 3 weeks. Hold position and prepare for combat operations. Admiral Lyric stared at the message for a long time. Earth. He had never heard of such a place, but they were coming, these unknown people. From across the galaxy, they were coming to fight the monsters that is peaceful. People could not stop, he just hoped that the cure would not prove worse than the disease. The human ships arrived exactly when they said they would. Admiral Lar watched from his bridge as dark shapes dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Zapirian territory. The vessels were nothing like he had expected. Most ships in the galaxy were built to be beautiful. The Altarians made theirs look like Silverwords. The vegans preferred smooth curves that reminded people of flowing water. Even Zapirian ships were designed to please the eye with their crystal surfaces and gentle light, but these human ships looked like they were built only for one purpose. They were dark gray metal boxes covered in weapons, thick armor plating covered every surface. Strange sensor arrays stuck out at odd angles. They looked ugly and mean, like tools made by people who expected to fight and expected to die. Sir, his aide whispered, they are requesting permission to approach. Granite Lyric replied. He tried to keep the nervousness out of his voice. These humans had traveled across the galaxy to help them, but something about their ships made his skin crawl with unease. The largest human vessel moved closer to the Zaffiran flagship. Through the viewing window, Lex could see lights moving inside the alien ship. The hull was scarred with old damage that had been repaired but not polished smooth. This was a ship that had seen many battles. Admiral, the communications officer announced, the human commander is requesting to come aboard. Very well, have them transported to Bay 7. Lyrics walked through the crystal corridors of his ship, his bare feet silent on the smooth floors. Other crew members stopped to watch him pass. Word had spread quickly that the humans had arrived. Everyone wanted to see what kind of beings would answer their desperate call. Bay 7 was filled with soft blue light when Lyrics arrived. Transportation beam hummed as it brought the human delegation aboard. When the light faded, 5 figures stood where empty space had been moments before. The humans were shorter than Zafirians, but they looked much stronger. Their bodies were thick with muscle, and they moved in a way that reminded Licks of predators he had seen in nature documentaries. Their skin was dark brown and tan, not clear like his own. They wore matching uniforms that looked both practical and intimidating. The leader stepped forward. She was a woman with short black hair and eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Her hand rested near a weapon on her belt. Even though this was supposed to be a peaceful meeting, Admiral Lix, she said in accented but understandable galactic standard, I am Colonel Maria Santos of the United Earth Defense Force. We came as quickly as we could, Colonel Santos. Lyrics replied, trying to match her formal tone. We are grateful for your response. May I ask what kind of military assistance your people can provide? The human colonel smiled, but it was not a gentle expression. Her teeth looked very white and very sharp. The kind that wins wars, Admiral. We brought 12 heavy cruisers, 36 destroyers and support vessels, about 15,000 personnel, all combat trained. 15,000. Lyrics felt a flutter of hope in his chest. The Zafirian fleet had maybe 3,000 people total, and most of them were scientists or engineers, not soldiers. If I may ask, Elle said carefully, what experience does your species have with warfare? One of the other humans, a man with gray hair and scars on his face, laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Admiral, my planet has been at war with itself for most of its history. We have weapons that can destroy entire cities. We have fought battles where millions died in a single day. War is what we do. Colonel Santos nodded. Captain Brown speaks the truth. Humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years. We are very good at killing things that need to be killed. The casual way she talked about death made Lyrics uncomfortable. Among his people, taking a life was almost unthinkable. Even when the crack had started destroying worlds, many Zafirans still believed that violence was wrong no matter what. What do you need from us? Lyrics asked. Intelligence on the enemy, Santos replied. Immediately, ship designs, weapon capabilities, attack patterns. We need to know everything you know about these. Catholic, of course, we will provide all our data immediately. Good, we will also need your people to stay out of our way during combat operations. No offense, Admiral, but your crews are not trained for war. They will only get in the way and get themselves killed. Lar felt slightly insulted, but he could not argue with her logic. His people were peaceful. They had no idea how to fight. There is one more thing, Santos continued. We intercepted some of the high-tech communications on our way here. They are planning a major attack on your core worlds within the next 2 weeks. If we are going to stop them, we need to hit them first, attack them. Lai was surprised, but surely defense would be more appropriate. We could evacuate the threatened worlds. And no, Santos cut him off. Admiral, if someone tries to kill you, you do not run away and hope they get tired. You kill them first. That is how you survive. The human captain with the scars nodded agreement. The best defense is a good offense. Admiral, we locate their main force and destroy it before they can attack your worlds, but surely we could try to negotiate with them again, perhaps now that they see you have military support. Admiral, Santos said, and her voice was very cold. Now did the cracks show mercy to the 4 million people on KTH-7? Lyrics felt the question hit him like a physical blow. No, he whispered. Then why would we show mercy to them? This is war, not a game. The Krek made the rules. When they started eating planets, we are just playing by those rules. After the humans left to return to their ships, Lyric stood alone in Base 7 for a long time. He had called across the galaxy for help, and help had come, but he was beginning to understand that the cure might be as terrible as the disease. His aide found him there an hour later. Admiral, the humans are requesting all of our tactical data on the KTK. They want to know ship positions, patrol routes, everything. Give it to them. Al said quietly. Sir, are you all right? You look troubled. Lyrics thought about the human colonel's smile, about the casual way they talked about killing, about the scars on the captain's face that spoke of violence. Survived. I asked the galaxy to send us monsters, he said finally, and I think that is exactly what we got. Later that day, Al received a message from Colonel Santos. The humans had finished analyzing the Zafirian data and were ready to begin military operations. They had located a Krithek patrol group about 3 days away from Zirian space. We will hit them tomorrow, the message said. This will be a test of their capabilities and our weapons. We recommend that you observe from a safe distance. You may learn something useful. The next morning, Lyric stood on his bridge, watching the long rain. Sensors as the human ships moved toward. Their first battle, the crack patrol, consisted of 3 bioships, each one the size of a small moon. The humans were bringing 6 vessels to the fight. Admiral, his sensor officer, reported. The humans are moving into attack. Position, the Crave have detected them and are turning to engage. On the display screen, Elle could see both fleets as glowing dots moving through space. The Crave biohips were larger and had more powerful energy weapons. By every tactical analysis his computers could perform, the humans should lose this battle, sir, the sensor officer said, his voice filled with shock. The humans just fired, but their weapons are not energy-based. They appear to be firing solid projectiles, solid projectiles. Lyrics leaned forward like bullets. Yes, sir, but much larger and much faster. The projectiles are moving at significant fractions of light speed. On the screen, streams of bright dots flew from the human ships toward the crack bio vessels. The alien creatures tried to dodge, but the projectiles were too fast, and there were too many of them. Impact. The sensor officer announced. The first crack ship exploded in a burst of green fire, its bio-array designed to deflect energy weapons had no defense against high-speed metal. The second ship tried to turn and run, but more projectiles caught it in the side, tearing through its living hull. Within 10 minutes, all 3 crack vessels were destroyed or dying. The humans had not lost a single ship. Admiral, his aide whispered, "What have we done?" Lyrics did not answer. He was thinking about the human colonel's words. The best defense is a good offense. Kill them before they kill you. These were not the thoughts of peaceful beings, but as he watched the burning remains of the Craddock patrol drift through space, he felt something he had not felt in months. Hope, maybe monsters were exactly what they needed. News of the human victory spread through the crack horde like poison in water. For the first time in their long conquest of the galaxy, they had lost ships in battle, not just lost them, but seen them destroyed completely with terrifying speed. Commander Vross stood in the flesh chamber of his bioship, studying the battle recordings his scouts had managed to transmit before dying. The humans fought differently than any species he had encountered. Most galactic civilizations used energy shields and plasma weapons, fighting at long range with graceful movements. These Earth creatures used crude metal projectiles and attacked like wild animals. His forearms twitched with anger as he watched human ships dart between asteroids, using the rocks as cover while they fired their primitive weapons. The bio-armor that had protected Crothic vessels for centuries meant nothing against chunks of metal moving at impossible speeds. Send word to the fleet master, Frack growled to his communications officer. Tell him we need more ships for the next attack. These humans are not like the other prey species. Meanwhile, on the human command ship, Colonel Santos was planning their next move. The bridge of the UE's Vengeance hummed with activity as officers studied star charts in enemy positions. The air smelled of metal and coffee, a sharp contrast to the sweet energy scents of Zapirian ships. "Ma'am," reported Lieutenant Alex Chen from his station, "we have identified 3 more groups in this sector. Each one has between 4 and 7 bioships." "What about their main fleet?" Santos asked. "Still heading toward the Zaffiran core worlds, but they have slowed down, probably trying to figure out what happened to their patrol? Santos nodded. The first battle had been a test, a way to see how effective human weapons would be against Krayik bioarmor. The results had been better than she had hoped, but she knew the real fighting was just beginning. Captain Brown, she called to the scarred officer standing near the tactical display. Take your destroyer group and hit the nearest crack patrol. I want them to know we are hunting them. Yes, ma'am. Rules of engagement, no. Survivors, we need to send a message. Admiral Lex had been watching the human preparations from his flagship with growing unease. The casual way they talked about killing disturbed him deeply. When Santos had said no survivors, she might have been discussing the weather, but as disturbing as their attitude was, their effectiveness could not be questioned. In 3 days, the humans had destroyed 7 KC vessels without losing a single ship of their own. For the first time since the invasion began, the aliens were retreating instead of advancing. Admiral, his aide announced, Commander Rick Davis is requesting permission to board. He says he has important information to share. When the human commander materialized in the transport bay, Lyric noticed immediately that he was different from the others, where Colonel Santos was cold and controlled. Davis seemed to radiate a barely contained energy. His eyes were bright with what looked like excitement. Admiral Davis said, his voice quick and eager, we have been studying the Krayik bioships from the wreckage of our battles. My science team has made some interesting discoveries. What kind of discoveries? Lyrics asked. The ships are not just alive, they are essentially giant organisms. They eat, they breathe. They can even reproduce, but that also means they have vulnerabilities that normal ships do not have. Davis activated a small device that projected a 3-dimensional image into the air. Between them, the image showed the inside of a Krayik bioship with pulsing organic corridors and chambers filled with green fluid. See these nerve clusters? Davis pointed to glowing nodes throughout the ship. They control movement and weapons. If we can hit them with targeted strikes, we can paralyze an entire vessel without destroying it. Why would you want to paralyze it instead of destroying it? Lyrics asked. Davis smiled and Lyrics felt a chill run through his crystal form. Because paralyzed ships can be boarded, Admiral, and boarded ships can be studied. We want to learn everything we can about how these creatures think and fight. The idea of humans walking through the living corridors of enemy ships, studying them like laboratory specimens, made Lyrics deeply uncomfortable. But before he could respond, alarms began sounding throughout his ship. Admiral, to the bridge came the urgent announcement. Large Krayik force detected approaching our position. On the bridge, the main display showed a terrifying sight. 15 Krayik bioships were moving toward the combined human and Zephyrian fleet. The alien vessels were massive, their organic hulls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that looked like angry scars. Admiral, his sensor officer, reported, the lead ship is trying to communicate with us. Put them on screen. The view screen flickered, then showed the bridge of the Krayik flagship. The creature in command was larger than the ones Lyrics had seen before, with thick armor plates covering most of its body. When it spoke, its voice was like grinding stone. Prey species, the Krat commander began. You have allied yourself with new predators. This changes nothing. We will consume your worlds and your new friends as well. Surrender now and your death will be quick. Before Lyric could respond, Commander Davis stepped into view of the camera. The human was still smiling, but now his expression looked genuinely frightening. Big bug, Davis said, deliberately insulting tones. Let me explain something to you. My species has been killing things like you since we learned to make fire. The only difference is that now we have better tools. The Craddock commander's forearms spread wide in what Lyrics recognized as a threat display. You speak bravely for such small prey. We will enjoy eating your ship first. Good luck with that, Davis replied, but first let me show you something. The human commander nodded to someone off-screen. A moment later, explosions began erupting throughout the crack formation. 3 of their biohips suddenly stopped moving, their weapons going silent as internal systems failed. What are you doing? The alien commander roared. We have been seeing your patrol routes with mines for the past 2 days, Davis explained calmly. Not explosive mines, biological weapons, designed specifically for your physiology. Your ships are being infected with a virus that attacks their nervous systems. Lex watched in horror as more Krat vessels began drifting helplessly through space. The humans had created weapons designed to kill living ships. It was brilliant and terrible at the same time. Impossible, the enemy commander hissed. We have been traveling these routes for months. We would have detected any weapons, not if they were disguised as space debris, Davis said. My people are very good at making things look like something they are not. We have had lots of practice. The remaining Catholic ships tried to retreat, but human vessels were already moving to surround them. The Earth ships fired their kinetic weapons with mechanical precision, targeting the nerve clusters Davis had identified. One by one, the alien vessels stopped fighting back as their control systems were severed. This is Commander Rick Davis to all human ships, came the announcement over the communication system. Prepare boarding parties. We are going to take some prisoners. As Lex watched human soldiers in armored suits jet across space toward the paralyzed biohips, he felt a deep sadness settle in his chest. The humans were winning the war, but they were doing it in ways that his peaceful people could never understand. Admiral, his aide whispered, are we becoming like them? Lyrics did not answer. He was watching the human boarding pods attached to Krat hulls like parasites. Soon those pods would cut through the living metal, and human soldiers would pour into the alien ships like antibodies attacking an infection. The monsters had come when called, and they were saving his people, but Lyrics was beginning to wonder if there would be anything left of Zapirian civilization worth saving when the war was over. On the human command ship, Colonel Santos was studying the tactical display with satisfaction. 15 crack vessels captured or destroyed. 0 human losses. The enemy was learning that Earth did not fight fair, clean wars. They fought to win no matter what it took. Ma'am, Lieutenant Chen reported. Commander Davis reports successful boarding of 3 enemy vessels. His teams are gathering intelligence on crack command structures and battle tactics. Excellent. What about the Crate main fleet? They have stopped their advance toward the core worlds. Long-range sensors indicate they are regrouping, probably trying to figure out what happened here. Santos nodded. Fear was a weapon just as effective as kinetic projectiles. Crack had been the galaxy's apex, predators for so long that they had forgotten what it felt like to be prey. Now they were learning. Interrogation chambers aboard the human ships were places that Admiral L never wanted to see again. He had requested permission to observe the questioning of captured crack prisoners, thinking it might help him understand the enemy better. What he witnessed instead was a lesson in human brutality that would haunt his dreams for years to come. The crack warrior was strapped to a metal table in the center of a sterile white room. Its forearms were secured with thick restraints and medical devices monitored its vital signs. The creature's chitinous armor had been partially removed, revealing the soft flesh underneath. Dr. Helen Rodriguez stood beside the table checking readings on a handheld scanner. She was the chief scientist aboard the human fleet, a small woman with graying hair and gentle eyes that completely mismatched the terrible work she was doing. The subject is responding well to the neural stimulation, she reported to General Patricia Moore, who had arrived that morning to oversee the intelligence gathering. We have been able to map most of its memory centers. What have you learned? Moore asked. The crack operate on a strict hierarchy system. Each warrior knows only what it needs to know for its specific role, but this one was a ship commander, so it has knowledge of fleet movements and attack plans. Kick on the table made a wet hissing sound that might have been laughter. Soft prey, it whispered in broken galactic standard. You think you understand us, but you know nothing. We are legion, we are hunger. When the great fleet arrives, your tiny ships will be consumed like insects. General Moore leaned closer to the alien. Tell me about this great fleet. Death comes from the core worlds, the creature replied. 100 biohips, each one the size of your largest cities. They carry the breeding queens in their spawn. When they arrive, this galaxy will become our feeding ground. Admiral L felt his crystal heart skip a beat. 100 ships, the largest crack vessels they had encountered so far, carried maybe 1,000 warriors each. If the great fleet was as large as this prisoner claimed, they would be facing millions of enemies. When will they arrive? Moore asked. The crack's black eyes glittered with malice. Soon, prey creature, very soon, and when they do, we will eat your world slowly. We will save your children for last so they can watch their parents die. Dr. Rodriguez touched a control on her device. The alien's body went rigid as electricity coursed through its nervous system. Not enough to kill, but enough to cause tremendous pain. Let me ask you again, Moore said calmly. When will the great fleet arrive? This time the croc told them everything. The great fleet was 3 weeks away. It was coming to destroy the Zephyrian core worlds and establish a permanent breeding colony in this sector of the galaxy. Once the colony was established, the crack would spread outward, consuming every inhabited world they could find. After the interrogation, Lyrics found himself alone with General Moore in a small conference room. The human military leader looked tired, but her eyes were as cold and calculating as ever. Admiral, she said, we need to evacuate your core worlds immediately. Get your people as far away as possible. Evacuate? Lar was shocked. But surely we can defend them. Your ships have been very effective against the crack forces. So far, against patrol groups and scouting fleets, yes, but 100 capital ships is different. Even if we win, the cost would be enormous. Lyrics felt a spark of anger rise in his chest. General, those worlds are home to over 2 billion Jirians. They contain our greatest cities, our most important cultural sites, our entire civilization. We cannot simply abandon them. More studied him for a long moment. Admiral, let me explain something to you. In human military doctrine, there are acceptable losses and unacceptable losses. Losing planets is acceptable if it means preserving the species. Losing the species to save planets is not, but there must be another way. Could we not ask for reinforcements from Earth? The nearest Earth fleet is 6 months away. We have what we have, nothing more. El was quiet for several minutes, thinking. Finally he looked up at the human general. What if we do not run? What if we make our stand at the core worlds and fight? Then a lot of people will die. Moore replied bluntly. Yours and mine. But is there a chance we could win? Moore was silent for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was thoughtful. There might be a way, but it would require tactics that your people would find disturbing, more disturbing than what I have already seen, much more disturbing. We would need to turn the core worlds themselves into weapons, booby traps on a planetary scale. We would need to evacuate most of the population anyway, but leave enough behind to make it look like the worlds are still inhabited. Lyrics felt cold. You are talking about using our own people as bait. I am talking about using volunteers as bait. People who understand that they probably will not survive, but who are willing to sacrifice themselves to save the rest of your species. The plan that General Moore outlined over the next several hours was the most ruthless thing Lex had ever heard. The humans would seed the 3 core worlds with biological weapons designed specifically to kill crack. They would hide nuclear devices in major cities. They would turn the planet's orbital defense platforms into massive bombs. When the crack Great Fleet arrived, they would find worlds that looked inhabited and defenseless. They would land their troops and begin setting up breeding colonies, and then the traps would be sprung all at once. The biological weapons will kill most of the ground forces, Moore explained, pointing to diagrams on the conference table. The nuclear devices will destroy their command centers. The orbital platforms will take out any ships that try to escape, and our people on those worlds, Lex asked quietly. The volunteers who stay behind will need to be inoculated against the biological weapons. They will have shelters to protect them from the nuclear blasts. Some of them might survive, some of them. Admiral, I am not going to lie to you. This plan will work, but the cost will be high. If you want to save your species, some of your people will have to die. That night Lick called an emergency meeting of the Zahirian Council. He explained General Moore's plan in detail, watching as the faces of his colleagues grew more horrified with each word. This is madness, Counselor. He said when he was finished. We cannot turn our own worlds into death traps. It goes against everything we believe in. The alternative is extinction, El replied. The humans are offering us a chance to survive. Price is terrible, but extinction is worse. What kind of people would we become if we agreed to this? Asked Counselor Vess. How could we live with ourselves knowing that we murdered millions of beings, even if they were our enemies? Counselor Nash, the youngest member, spoke up. How can we live with ourselves if we do nothing and let our entire civilization die? At least General Moore's plan gives us a chance. The debate went on for hours. In the end, the vote was close. 7 counselors voted to accept the human plan. 5 voted against it. Very well, El said. Heavily, we will proceed with the operation. May our ancestors forgive us for what we are about to do. The next 3 weeks were the most intense of Lyric's life. Human and Zephyrian teams worked around the clock to prepare the 3 core worlds for the coming battle. Evacuation ships carried millions of civilians to safety while volunteers stayed behind to maintain the illusion of normal life. Dr. Rodriguez and her team developed biological weapons that would target craft physiology while leaving other species unharmed. Human engineers placed nuclear devices in strategic locations throughout the major cities. The orbital defense platforms were rigged with enough explosives to crack a moon. Admiral Lyric spent most of his time on the surface of Zaya Prime, the capital world of his people, walking through the crystal spires and floating gardens that had taken centuries to build, knowing that in a few days they might all be radioactive ruins. Captain Tony Williams found him there on the last day before the crack were due to arrive. The human officer was checking the final preparations for the orbital bombardment. Admiral Williams said, my sensors show the great fleet dropping out of hyperspace. They will be here in 6 hours. Lyrics nodded. Around them the city looked almost normal. Zephyrian volunteers moved through the streets maintaining their daily routines to keep up the deception. Most of them knew they would probably die in the next few hours. Captain L asked, does your species have any concept of honor in warfare? Williams thought about the question for a moment. We have a saying, Admiral. All's fair in love and war. When someone tries to exterminate you, honor becomes a luxury you cannot afford. And after the war, when the crack are gone, what happens to the monsters then? Williams looked out at the crystal city, beautiful and doomed. Then we try to remember how to be human again, but that is a problem for tomorrow. Today we have a job to do. In orbit above Zaporia Prime, the first crack biohips began to appear. The trap was set. Soon the galaxy would learn what happened when Earth's monsters were given permission to do whatever it took to win. The Kraith Great Fleet arrived like a storm of living metal and hunger. Admiral Lyrics watched from his flagship, hidden behind the largest moon of Zaporia Prime, as 100 massive biohips dropped out of hyperspace. Each vessel was the size of a small city, their organic hulls pulsing with bioluminescent veins that made them look like giant hearts beating in the darkness of space. Fleet Master Core stood in the nerve center of his flagship, the largest biohip ever grown by his species. Through the living walls he could feel the excitement of his warriors as they gazed upon the 3 Zephyrian core worlds, rich, populated planets full of soft prey and perfect breeding grounds for the next generation of crack. Begin the landing operations. Korath commanded, send 50 ships to each world. Leave the orbital defenses for last. They will be easy to destroy once we control the surface. On Zephyria Prime, the volunteers who had stayed behind watched the alien ships descend through the atmosphere like falling stars. Dr. Linda Hayes stood in the central command bunker beneath the capital city, monitoring the biological weapon dispersal systems. Her hands shook slightly as she watched the enemy landing craft touch down in the city squares. All teams, this is Control. She whispered into her communicator. The targets are on the ground. Begin Phase 1. In 60 seconds, across the 3 worlds, Zephyrian volunteers activated hidden devices that released invisible clouds of death into the air, the biological weapons that Dr. Rodriguez had designed spread quickly through the cryotech forces. The alien warriors did not notice anything at first. The weapons were designed to work slowly, mimicking a natural infection. Fleet Master Kareth was pleased with the initial reports. From the surface, his warriors had encountered minimal resistance. The Zephyrians seemed to have given up without a fight, just as most prey species did when faced with overwhelming force. Excellent, he said to his commanders. Begin establishing the breeding chambers. The queens will want to start laying eggs as soon as possible. But then the reports began to change. Warriors on the surface were becoming sick. First they moved more slowly, then they began collapsing. Within 2 hours of landing, half of the crack ground forces were dead or dying. What is happening down there? Korth demanded. Unknown Fleet Master, his aide, replied. The warriors report feeling weak. Their bioarmor is failing. Many have stopped responding to communications. On the human command ship, General Moore watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. Phase 1 is working perfectly, she reported to Admiral Lex over the communication channel. KC, ground forces are down by 60% and falling. What about their ships? Lex asked. Still in orbit, but they are starting to panic. Some of them are trying to evacuate their forces from the surface. Then it is time for Phase 2. Dr. Hayes activated the second part of the trap. Nuclear devices hidden throughout the 3 worlds detonated simultaneously. The explosions were carefully placed to destroy crack landing sites and command centers while leaving most of the cities intact. Mushroom clouds rose above crystal spires as the power of split atoms was unleashed. The nuclear blasts caught many Kraith ships still loading survivors from the surface, bio-vessels that had evolved to resist energy. Weapons found themselves torn apart by forces they had never encountered. The living metal of their hulls could not heal fast enough to repair the damage from nuclear fire. Fleet Master Core felt his flagship shudder as shock waves from the explosions reached orbit. Through the bioneural link that connected him to his ship, he could sense the death and pain of his warriors on the surface. Retreat from the planets, he ordered. Pull all ships back to safe distance. But as the crack fleet began to withdraw, the third phase of the human trap was sprung. The orbital defense platforms that had looked helpless and abandoned suddenly came to life. Each platform had been converted into a massive bomb, packed with enough explosive to destroy a moon. Captain Tony Williams pressed the detonation button from his hidden position behind the outer moon. All platforms execute Phase 3, maximum yield. The orbital platforms exploded in sequence, creating a ring of fire around each planet. The blast waves caught dozens of Krothic biohips as they tried to escape. The massive explosions tore through their organic hulls and sent chunks of living metal spinning into space. Impossible, Kareth whispered as he watched his fleet being destroyed. In less than 4 hours, he had lost over half of his ships and nearly all of his ground forces. The prey species had turned their own worlds into weapons, but the Fleet Master was not finished. He still Had 40 bioships left, and his rage burned like a star in his chest. If the soft creatures wanted to play with death, he would show them what real extinction looked like. All remaining ships, he broadcast to his fleet, target the planets themselves. We will crack their worlds and feast on the molten core. The surviving crack vessels began charging their planet killer weapons, biocannons that could split continents. Focused their power on the 3 Zephyrian worlds. If Korath could not have breeding grounds, he would at least have revenge. But General Moore had anticipated this final move. As the crowded ships powered their world-killing weapons, human vessels that had been hiding throughout the system suddenly revealed themselves. They had been waiting in the shadows of asteroids, behind space debris, even inside the hulls of destroyed ships. All human ships. This is General Moore. Came the broadcast on every frequency. Execute Order 7. No survivors. The hidden human fleet struck like a pack of wolves attacking a wounded animal. Kinetic weapons fired from every direction, targeting the nerve clusters that controlled the crate biohips. Aliens found themselves surrounded by enemies they had not even known were there. Admiral Kevin Walsh led the main assault from the UE's Apocalypse. His ship had been hiding inside the wreckage of a destroyed space station for 3 days, waiting for this moment. Now it emerged like a metal predator, its weapons already firing. Target their command ship. Walsh ordered, take down their fleet master. The Apocalypse and 5 other human vessels concentrated their fire on Korath's flagship. Massive biohip tried to defend itself, but its weapons were designed for long-range bombardment, not close combat with fast-moving attackers. Kinetic projectiles punched through the living hull of the command ship. Kor felt each impact like a knife in his own body. His connection to the ship was both a blessing and a curse. He could control it with thought alone, but he also felt its pain as it died. Fleet Master, his aide gasped, green blood flowing from wounds in his chitinous armor. The ship is failing. We must evacuate. No, Korath replied, his voice weak but determined. We are crowded. We do not run from prey. The Fleet Master died with his ship when the final kinetic round penetrated the command center. The explosion that followed could be seen from the surface of all 3 worlds. With their leader dead and their fleet scattered, the remaining crack vessels tried to escape, but the humans had prepared for this. 2 fast attack ships pursued the fleeing biovessels, hunting them down. One by one, Captain Rachel Davis, following in her mother's footsteps, commanded one of the pursuit groups. No survivors, she repeated into her communicator as her ships chased a damaged crack vessel toward the edge of the system. That was the order. The last crack ship was destroyed 18 hours after the battle began. When the final explosion faded, there was nothing left of the great fleet but drifting debris and the smell of burned biomatter. On Zaporia Prime, Dr. Hayes emerged from her bunker to find a world transformed. The crystal cities were damaged but standing. The nuclear fires had burned out, leaving scars on the landscape but not destroying the planet. Of the 5,000 volunteers who had stayed behind, nearly 3,000 had survived in their shelters. General Moore stood in the ruins of the capital's main square, watching her soldiers collect samples of crack biotechnology. Around her, Zephyrian survivors worked to put out the last of the fires. Victory had been complete, but the cost had been terrible. Admiral Lyrics found her there as the sun was setting over the damaged city. The Zapirian leader looked older than he had a week ago, as if the weight of what they had done had aged him years and days. It is over, he asked. It is over, Moore confirmed. Crack Great Fleet is destroyed. Their command structure is broken. It will be centuries before they can mount another offensive like this one, if ever. And the galaxy is safe for now. Lyrics was quiet for a long time, looking at the mixture of crystal beauty and nuclear destruction that surrounded them. General, what happens now? Your people have saved us, but at what cost? To ourselves. Moore considered the question carefully. Admiral, my species has a long history of fighting monsters. Sometimes to defeat them, we have to become monsters ourselves. The trick is remembering how to be human again when the war is over. And can you remember how to be human? We will find out. My government is already sending diplomatic ships to establish peaceful relations with the other species in this sector. The Earth Defense Force will remain as a peacekeeping presence, but we hope that force will not be necessary again. In the weeks that followed, word of the Catholic defeat spread throughout the galaxy.